I wasn't supposed to be there that late. The hallway outside her office was empty, echoing with the hum of the old building's fluorescent lights. Every door was shut except hers, the faint glow under the frame, a quiet square of light in the otherwise dark corridor. She looked up when I knocked, halfway through stacking papers. "Oh, no one's usually around this late," she said, voice low but warm. I hesitated in the doorway, the scent of coffee and old books wrapping around us. "I was returning the sketchbook you lent me. Didn't want to forget again." She smiled, just barely, and motioned for me to come in. "You could have waited until morning." "I couldn't sleep." Her laugh was soft, almost to herself. "You're too young to have that problem." I set the sketchbook down on her desk, careful not to disturb the neat piles she'd made. The lamplight caught the edge of her hair, the faint silver mixed through brown. She wasn't trying to look younger, she didn't need to. There was something steadier in her, like she'd already fought her battles and learned to live with the scars. "You always stay late?" I asked. She leaned back in her chair, eyes on me in that way that made my throat tighten. "Sometimes. It's quieter when everyone's gone." Her hand brushed a loose sheet of paper, but didn't really move it. "People stop asking for things." I nodded. There was a kind of peace in her office, not silence, exactly, but a soft, thinking kind of quiet. On the shelf, a half-empty mug. Outside, rain started tapping against the tall window. She noticed me looking. "Cold out there?" "Little bit," I said. "Didn't bring a jacket." "Of course you didn't." She rose from her chair, crossed to the coat stand, and pulled down a dark shawl. "Here." She stepped closer, close enough that I caught the faint scent of her perfume, something subtle and clean. When she draped it around my shoulders, her fingers brushed the back of my neck for a second too long. I think she noticed it, too, because her breath hitched, barely audible, before she stepped back. "Better?" she asked. I swallowed. "Yeah. Thanks." We both laughed, though neither of us said why. The sound didn't quite fit the quiet, but it broke something between us, the formality, the age, the rules we both knew too well. She turned to tidy her desk again, but her movements were slower now. "You were a good student," she said. "I remember that. Focused. Maybe a little too quiet. I didn't have much to say back then." "And now?" I hesitated. "Still figuring that out." Her eyes met mine again, a longer pause this time. The rain outside thickened, soft drumming filling the space. I could see her deciding something, the way her jaw tightened, the way she half turned toward the door then stopped. When she finally spoke, her voice was softer, almost careful. "You're not leaving yet, are you?" Before I could answer, she crossed the room and closed the door. The click of the latch sounded louder than it should have. She didn't look back right away. Her hand stayed on the doorknob for a moment, her shoulders lifting with a quiet breath, something between restraint and impulse. Then she turned, eyes steady, searching mine for a truth neither of us had named yet. Outside, thunder rolled low across the campus. And inside her small office, time slowed to a hush. The door stayed closed longer than it should have. Neither of us said anything at first. The air in the room shifted, denser maybe, or just more aware of itself. She finally exhaled, quiet, then moved past me toward her desk again. "It's late," she murmured, but she didn't open the door. "You should probably." She stopped there, fingers brushing the edge of a folder, eyes lowered. "You'll catch cold." "I'm fine," I said. "You're the one still working." She gave a half smile, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "Old habits." "From before teaching?" "From before everything." She waved it off, but the words hung between us. I watched her trace the rim of her mug, then set it down untouched. There was a loneliness about her, not the loud, visible kind, but something quieter, worn into the way she straightened a stack of papers that didn't need straightening. "You ever get tired of pretending you're okay?" I asked before I could stop myself. She froze. Then, "That's a dangerous question." "I didn't mean." "No," she interrupted softly. "You're just honest." I forget how that sounds sometimes. She turned toward the window, her reflection faint in the glass, half light, half shadow. My marriage ended years ago. People don't talk about it much. Easier that way. Easier for me, too. Her voice wavered not from sadness, but from the strain of keeping steady. And you? She glanced over her shoulder. You're barely starting your life. I don't feel that young, I said. That's the thing about youth. She smiled faintly. You never do until it's gone. Silence again. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. The clock on her shelf ticked softly, like it didn't want to interrupt. When she turned back, her expression was calm, but her hands betrayed her, fingers tapping once against her thigh before she crossed the space between us. You always look at people like that, she asked. Like what? Like you're waiting for them to tell you something they won't. I didn't know what to say. She stepped closer, close enough that I could see the faint line of a dimple appear near her mouth. Her hand hovered near my shoulder, not touching, not yet. If anyone saw us right now, she said quietly, I'd say we were just talking. She nodded, eyes on the floor. You'd say that. I'm the one they'd whisper about. I felt the weight of her words, the cost she'd already calculated. Still, when she finally let her hand fall, it landed lightly against my arm. Just the back of her fingers grazing my sleeve. It wasn't a deliberate touch, or maybe it was, I couldn't tell. All I knew was that neither of us moved for a long moment. Then she pulled away, but not far. You should go, she whispered. I should have agreed. Instead, I said, I don't want to. She didn't turn, didn't speak. Her reflection in the window caught her expression, eyes closed, a faint tremor in her jaw, something breaking open and being hidden again. When she finally looked back, her voice was quieter than the rain outside. Then don't. The rain hadn't stopped. It whispered against the window, softer now, but steady. She hadn't turned the light back on after I said I didn't want to leave. The lamp glowed low, warm enough to catch the gold in her eyes when she looked at me. We stood on opposite sides of her desk, as if the narrow strip of wood between us could still mean something. You know how this looks, she said, folding her arms, though her voice wasn't sharp. Someone sees you in here at this hour. They'd assume I'm begging for extra credit, I said, trying to make her smile. She did, but only for a second. Don't joke about that. Her tone carried a small tremor, not anger, something else. It's not funny. I wasn't, I said softly. Her gaze met mine again. She held it longer this time, until the hum of the overhead light filled the silence between words we weren't ready to speak. A phone buzzed on her desk, loud in the stillness. She reached for it quickly. The screen lit her face, Dean Morris. Her breath caught. He never calls this late, she murmured, declining the call. The sound of the rejected tone felt final, like something locked behind us. You should answer, I said. I shouldn't have to. She placed the phone face down, as if to erase it. He probably just needs a report or something. But she didn't move away from me. She stayed standing there, close enough that when she reached for a paper beside my hand, her sleeve brushed my wrist. The smallest contact, nothing, really, but it made everything else louder. My pulse. The rain. The faint ticking clock. She noticed. I could tell by the way she stilled, her hand frozen halfway between movement and withdrawal. Elena! I started. She blinked once, that quiet, startled look she got when I said her name instead of Professor. Her lips parted slightly. Don't, she said. Not like that. But her voice wasn't convincing. She didn't move. A knock broke through the quiet. We both turned, the sound slicing through the moment. A student's voice, muffled through the door. Professor Vance? You still in there? She stepped back so fast her chair bumped the shelf behind her. Yes, just a moment, she called too brightly. She turned to me, eyes wide, 1,000 unsaid things in them. Go, she mouthed. I moved toward the corner near the window as she opened the door halfway. The student stood there, raincoat dripping, holding a folder. You asked for my essay draft. Oh. Right. She took it quickly. Thank you. I'll look at it tomorrow. The student hesitated, glanced past her shoulder, but the office light was dim, shadows heavy. He didn't see me. Good night, Professor. When the door clicked shut again, she leaned against it, exhaling a shaky laugh. God, she whispered. That was close. I stepped forward, barely a breath between us now. Her hair had fallen across her cheek. Instinctively, I brushed it back. My hand hovered there, near her face, not touching, not quite. She didn't move away. We can't keep doing this, she said quietly. I know. But neither of us stepped back. The rain started up again, harder this time, as if the world itself was reminding us what we were risking. After the near discovery, the office felt smaller. The air still carried the scent of rain and paper and the faint trace of her perfume. She stood by the door a long time, hand flat against the wood as though steadying herself. You should go, she said again, but the words had no direction. I moved closer instead, not touching her, just close enough that our reflections merged in the dark window. I keep trying to, I said quietly. Every time I walk away, I end up back here. She gave a tired laugh, soft, almost breaking. You make it sound like I'm gravity. Maybe you are. She turned then. The lamp caught the shimmer at her temple. Don't say things like that. Why not? Because I'll start to believe them, she said. The confession hung there. Neither of us moved. A slow tremor passed through her shoulders. I reached out before thinking and brushed a strand of hair away from her face. It clung to my fingers with static. She didn't pull back. Her eyes met mine, clear, searching, afraid. You don't understand what this could do, she whispered. I do. No, you don't. You still think feeling something is enough. Her voice broke on that last word. She pressed a hand to her mouth, as if to catch what had slipped out. I could feel the heat radiating from her, the nearness like standing too close to a fire you're not sure you want to escape. I don't want to hurt you, she said. Then don't. That stopped her. For a heartbeat, there was nothing but the ticking clock, our breathing out of sync. She stepped forward once, then again, until the hem of her blouse brushed my sleeve. God, this is wrong, she murmured. Then tell me to leave. She didn't. Instead, she let her forehead rest briefly against my shoulder. The contact was barely there, but it carried everything: loneliness, restraint, the fragile warmth of something they both knew couldn't last. Her breath stirred against my collar. You make me feel. She stopped herself. Say it, I whispered. She shook her head, almost laughing through the ache. I'm afraid if I do, I won't stop. I lifted my hand, touched the edge of her jaw with 2 fingers. Her pulse fluttered beneath the skin. Maybe that's not the worst thing. Her eyes closed, and for an instant the distance between us disappeared. The world outside, the rain, the hallway, the rules, faded into the hush of almost. Then, just as her lips parted to speak, or maybe not to, a sound shattered the stillness, the distant jingle of keys, footsteps in the corridor. She drew back sharply, breath unsteady. We can't, she said. But the way she looked at me said otherwise. The footsteps passed. Silence returned. We stood there, not touching, the air between us trembling with everything that hadn't yet happened. The next day, the campus felt different. The rain had cleared, but the air still carried that damp, metallic scent of storms just past, the kind that makes everything too bright, too fragile. I hadn't planned to see her. I told myself I'd leave things where we'd left them, unspoken, trembling on the edge. But habits are hard to kill, and by late afternoon, I found myself outside her office again. The door was open this time. Sunlight cut across the floor, dust floating through it like fragments of thought. She was sitting behind her desk, staring at an empty cup, not writing, not moving. When she noticed me, she didn't startle. Just a small sigh, half relief, half resignation. You shouldn't be here, she said. I know. You keep saying that. Because I keep meaning it. She almost smiled. Almost. Then she gestured toward the chair. Close the door. I hesitated, the same door that had made everything too close the night before, but I obeyed. For a while, we said nothing. Her hands were clasped too tightly, the knuckles pale. Finally, she spoke. I told myself I'd never make the same mistake twice. I didn't move. What mistake? She stared at the desk as if the words might be written there. When I was your age, I was the student. I thought I knew what I wanted. He was older. Married. It didn't matter at the time. Her voice stayed calm, but her hands trembled. When it ended, it wasn't just heartbreak. It was gossip. The kind that doesn't fade. The kind that sticks to your name long after the truth stops mattering. The room felt colder. I leaned forward. Is that why you're afraid of this? She met my eyes then, the faintest anger flickering beneath her restraint. I'm not afraid. I'm tired. There's a difference. The words hit hard, not cruel, just painfully honest. I'm not him, I said quietly. I know. She stood, walked to the window, fingers tracing the condensation on the glass. That's what makes it worse. The sunlight caught the gold in her hair. I wanted to touch her shoulder, to tell her it didn't have to be the same story again, but I didn't move. She turned, saw the conflict written all over me. I can't go through that again, she said. Not because of how it looks. Because of what it does. Her eyes softened. You deserve someone who can be seen with you. Maybe I only want you, I said. The truth came out too fast, too raw. She closed her eyes, as if bracing for it. Then, with a quiet exhale, she crossed the distance between us, not to kiss me, not to run. Just close enough that I could feel her breath near my jaw, trembling with all the things she couldn't say. Then we both know, she whispered. What comes next? She stepped past me, hand brushing mine, accidental, deliberate, it didn't matter. The door opened. Sunlight spilled across the floor. But this time, either of us pretended it was over. Weeks passed before they saw each other again. The semester was winding down. Students drifted through the halls with the weightless noise of endings. Elena had stopped answering his texts after that last afternoon. He told himself it was finished. Then, one night, he found her again in the small lecture hall where she used to hold tutorials, alone, stacking slides for next term. She looked up when he entered. Her expression flickered between relief and fear. I thought you'd moved on, she said. I tried, he answered. Did you? She gave a faint, tired smile. Trying is all I ever do. The hum of the projector filled the space between them. Dust hung in the beam of light, trembling like something alive. I didn't come here to make things harder, he said. You already have, she whispered. He stepped closer, slowly, until his shadow crossed hers on the wall. You told me what happened before. But you never told me what you wanted. Her hands tightened around the folder until the paper bent. Wanting and choosing aren't the same. Then choose, he said. She looked up, eyes glassy in the half-light. You think it's that easy? No, he said. That's why I'm still here. For a long moment she didn't breathe. Then she set the folder down, the sound startlingly loud in the empty room. He could feel the change before she spoke, the air thickening, the pulse in his throat keeping time with hers. She reached out, fingers barely grazing the sleeve of his shirt. I hate that you remind me I'm still alive, she said. He caught her hand gently, not pulling her closer but not letting go. Maybe that's not something to hate. She shook her head, eyes closing as if the world spun too fast. When she opened them again, there was no disguise left, just the truth of two people standing too close for excuses. I kept telling myself this was wrong, she said. That it would end the same way. And now? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Now I just don't want to be afraid. She leaned forward until their foreheads touched, nothing more. The warmth of her breath trembled against his skin, the simplest contact holding everything they'd been avoiding. Neither moved. The room was silent except for the faint click of the projector cooling down, the rhythm of 2 uneven heartbeats. When she finally pulled back, there were tears in her eyes but also something steadier, lighter. "This can't be a secret," she said. "Whatever happens next, it has to be real." He nodded. "Then it will be." She smiled, small, certain, and reached up to trace the corner of his jaw, a touch that felt like both an ending and a beginning. Outside, the lights in the corridor flickered off for the night. Inside, they stood still, understanding, at last, exactly what they had chosen. Spring crept back slowly. The trees outside her building had started to bloom again, small white petals caught in the breeze that drifted through the open windows. The air no longer smelled like rain or old paper, but sunlight and something alive. Elena sat on the steps outside the faculty hall, papers in her lap, the late light soft across her face. She didn't look surprised when Noah walked up the path toward her, just a quiet recognition, like she'd been waiting without meaning to. "I thought you'd be gone by now," she said, smiling faintly. "Graduation's next week," he said. "I wanted to see you before everything changes." She closed her folder and set it beside her. "Everything always changes," she said. "That's what keeps us honest." He sat beside her, careful not to crowd her. For a while either spoke. The world around them was full of small sounds, birds settling into trees, the soft shuffle of students crossing the lawn, laughter drifting from somewhere unseen. Finally she said, "You were right, you know. I kept hiding behind fear because it felt safer than being seen." He looked at her hands, fingers still, the faint tremor gone. "And now? Now I'm tired of pretending I don't want the things I want." The words weren't dramatic. They were steady, quiet, full of truth. He reached out, slow enough that she could stop him if she wanted, and she didn't. Their hands met, not a rush, not a claim, just the comfort of two people deciding, finally, not to pull away. For the first time, she leaned against his shoulder. The warmth of her felt different now, no longer a secret, no longer something they had to explain. The light shifted across the courtyard, gold fading into rose. "I used to think age was a wall," she said softly. "Now I think it's just another kind of bridge." He smiled, brushing his thumb over her knuckles. "You're better with words than I am." "Maybe," she said, laughing quietly. "But you're better at listening." They stayed like that, silent, watching the sun sink. Somewhere behind them, the janitor began locking doors for the night, but neither moved. It didn't matter anymore if anyone saw. The fear had gone quiet, replaced by something gentler, acceptance, warmth, a fragile kind of peace. When she finally spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "We'll take it one day at a time?" "One day at a time," he echoed. He turned to her then, and she met him halfway, not a kiss meant to erase anything, but one that acknowledged everything, the waiting, the mistakes, the choice to stay. And for the first time, the world outside their story felt still. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?